My friends, let us begin with the one obstacle that has held back countless men and women from realizing the fullness of their desires. It is the tyranny of the senses, the unyielding authority we give to what our eyes see, what our ears hear, and what our reason insists must be true. We live in a world that constantly tells us, believe only what you see. From childhood, we are trained to measure reality by appearances, to trust only the visible, the tangible, the so-called facts of life. And yet, I tell you, what you see is not reality. It is merely a reflection, a shadow cast by former imaginal acts. The outer world, no matter how stubborn or fixed it may appear, is nothing more than yesterday's belief solidified into form. When you look at your bank account and see lack, when you look at your relationships and see distance, when you look at your body and see weakness or limitation, you are not looking at the truth. You are looking at an echo, a residue, the lingering after effect of past states of consciousness. And here lies the great mistake most people make. They look at this echo, this shadow, and they accept it as the final word. They bow to appearances as though appearances had the power to dictate the future. They say, how can I believe in wealth when I see poverty? How can I believe in health when I feel pain? How can I believe in love when I see rejection? They do not understand that to give power to appearances is to perpetuate them, to keep alive that which they long to escape. I am here to tell you that your senses are the greatest deceivers in your journey of creation. They whisper to you that nothing has changed, that your desire is far away, that your imagination is only make-believe. But if you surrender to them, if you allow your mood to be shaped by what you see, you will remain bound to the same pattern forever. The outer world is like a mirror. If you stand before it frowning, do not expect the reflection to smile back. Yet most people frown at life and demand that it show them joy before they themselves dare to feel it. They want the mirror to change first, forgetting that the image in the mirror only echoes the one who stands before it. Let us pause and reflect on this. The moment you take what your eyes see as absolute, you have denied your own creative power. You have declared that the outer world is greater than your imagination, that effect is stronger than cause. You have abandoned the role of creator and accepted the role of victim. That is the tyranny of the senses, the dictatorship of appearances. And until you dethrone this false ruler, you will never know freedom. So what must you do? You must learn to see with a higher vision, to perceive not with the eyes of flesh, but with the eye of imagination. When you close your eyes and enter the inner world, you are not escaping reality. You are entering the only reality that truly matters. What you imagine with feeling, what you inwardly assume as true, is far more powerful than anything the outer world could ever present. For the outer world is late, always late. It is slow to respond, for it only follows the command given to it by imagination. And imagination speaks not in words but in assumptions, in the tones of feeling, in the inner conviction that something is already so. Consider this. Suppose you are without money, your senses scream, you are poor. Your reason insists, you cannot afford what you desire. If you yield to these voices, you have chained yourself to poverty. But if you dare to ignore the evidence of your senses, if you dare to shut your ears to the world and instead hear only what you wish to hear, you have broken the chain. You may imagine holding the money in your hands. You may imagine hearing a friend congratulate you on your success. You may imagine yourself walking freely, unburdened by lack. To the senses, this is madness. To the world, it is a delusion. But I tell you, this is the only path to freedom. For what you sustain in imagination, no matter how unreal it appears now, will harden into fact. Do not underestimate how persuasive appearances can be. They will tempt you daily, tugging at your faith, demanding that you bow before them. You may imagine health tonight, but in the morning your body may ache. You may imagine reconciliation, but the next day you may hear harsh words from the very person you desire to be near. If you judge by appearances, you will say, nothing works. My imagination is powerless. And in that moment you have allowed the senses to conquer you once again. But if you stand firm, if you ignore the outer facts and hold steadfastly to your inner vision, you will discover that the senses must eventually yield. The mirror must eventually reflect the new image you have impressed upon it. This is why I say to you, the outer world is a past state. It is already finished, already written, already powerless to dictate what you shall experience next. The moment you turn within and assume a new state, you have planted the seed of a new reality. Do not rush to the soil every hour to see if the seed has sprouted. Do not despair when the old crop still stands in the field. Trust the process. Ignore the outer evidence, for it belongs to yesterday. Believe only in what you imagine, for it is the promise of tomorrow clothed in the garment of today. The tyranny of the senses is broken only by the boldness of imagination. You must dare to disregard reason when reason contradicts your desire. You must dare to laugh at appearances when appearances declare your defeat. You must dare to feel rich when the world shouts poverty, to feel loved when the world shows you loneliness, to feel healthy when the world insists you are ill. This is not pretending. This is not daydreaming. This is creation at its highest form. For the unseen is the cause, and the seen is only the effect. To reverse this order is to remain enslaved, but to honor it is to live as master. My friends, imagination is not a child's game, nor is it the idle play of fantasy. Imagination is the very center of all creation, the workshop of God Himself expressed through you. It is through imagination that worlds are formed, destinies shaped, and realities summoned into being. Yet the tragedy of man is that he dismisses imagination as unreal, while bowing in reverence to the facts of the outer world. But I tell you, the so-called outer world is nothing but imagination objectified. The houses you live in, the cities you walk through, the inventions you hold in your hands, even the clothes upon your back. All these were once mere imaginal acts, nurtured in the unseen before they became solid to the eye. Take a moment to truly consider this. Everything you now call real was once invisible. The airplane was once only a vision in the mind of the Wright brothers. The electric light was once only a dream in the imagination of Edison. The music that moves your soul was once silent until some man or woman heard it inwardly and dared to bring it forth. All progress, all creation, all advancement springs not from what is, but from what is imagined. Why then should you think your own desire is any different? Why should you doubt that the scene you hold in imagination is just as real, just as certain to manifest as any invention that has changed the course of human history? Imagination, when disciplined and directed, is not fantasy. It is reality awaiting birth. You may close your eyes tonight and enter a scene that delights your soul. A scene where you are already the person you long to be, already in possession of the thing you long to have. And if you sustain that inner act with faith, refusing to let the outer world dissuade you, it must in time harden into fact. For the inner is the cause, and the outer is only the effect. What you imagine with conviction plants itself in the depths of consciousness, and from there it pushes outward, rearranging circumstances, shifting events, even moving men and women into positions they themselves do not understand, all to bring forth the image you have sustained. The world will laugh at you. They will say, "That is foolishness, that is wishful thinking, that is daydreaming." But the same world once laughed at the man who said he would fly, or at the man who said he would light the world with a bulb of glass. They mocked, but imagination triumphed, and imagination will always triumph when it is persisted in with faith. You may not know the means by which your imaginal act will fulfill itself. You do not need to know. Your task is not to figure out the how. Your task is only to dwell in the end, to feel the reality of your desire as though it were already so, and to rest in that conviction. The means will reveal themselves in their own appointed hour. Understand this clearly. Imagination is not merely a faculty of mind. It is God in action. When you imagine with intent, you are exercising the very power by which the universe itself was called into being. Scripture declares, "Things which are seen were not made of things which do appear." The visible is born from the invisible. Creation begins in the unseen realm of thought and assumption, and then it unfolds into form. This is why I urge you to take imagination seriously. To treat it as casual, to indulge in it only as a passing diversion, is to misuse the greatest gift ever bestowed upon man. Now, many of you say, "I imagine, but nothing happens." And I ask you, what did you imagine? Did you imagine with conviction, or did you simply play with a picture in your mind, all the while secretly doubting it could ever come true? Did you dwell in the end, or did you constantly return to the old state, looking around at facts and letting them persuade you? For imagination cannot be divided. To imagine once and then return to fear is to plant a seed and then uproot it the next moment. The soil of consciousness requires steadiness. You must persist in your imaginal act until it takes root, until it grows so natural within you that you no longer question whether it is true. When I speak of imagination, I do not mean merely daydreaming about what you want. I mean entering into the scene, feeling its reality, hearing the sounds, touching the textures, tasting the fulfillment. If you desire a home, do not merely see it from the outside. Walk through the doors in imagination. Feel the floor beneath your feet. Smell the fragrance of flowers upon the table. Hear the laughter of your loved ones within. If you desire success, do not merely think of it in abstraction. Imagine the congratulations of a friend, the tone of their voice as they tell you how proud they are. Hear it inwardly until it sounds real. See their faces light up as they speak. Allow the imaginal scene to be so vivid, so complete, that when you return to the outer world, it is the outer world that feels unreal compared to the reality of what you have experienced within. This is the creative power of imagination. It allows you to inhabit a new state before the evidence of the senses has changed. It gives you the ability to live in the end, to dwell in the fulfillment of your desire before the shadow world catches up. And if you can sustain that inner state, no power on earth can stop its manifestation. For the outer world must obey the command of imagination. It cannot resist. It cannot be argued. It cannot delay forever. Sooner or later, the imaginal act will break through, and what was once unseen will stand before you as solid fact. You see, imagination is not limited by the laws of the physical world. It does not need permission from time or space. It leaps instantly into the end, and in doing so, it plants the seed of that end in the soil of reality. While reason struggles and calculates, imagination simply assumes. An assumption, when persisted in, becomes fact. My friends, the great secret of creation, the key that unlocks every door of desire, is this: you must live in the end. To live in the end is to occupy the state of the wish fulfilled, to so immerse yourself in its reality that you no longer strive for it, you no longer hope for it, but you rest in the conviction that it already is. The world teaches you to look at your desires as something distant, as something to be worked for, struggled for, waited for. But I tell you, desire is not a call to struggle, it is a call to assume. When the feeling of desire arises within you, it is God Himself revealing the path you are to walk. And the only question is whether you will live in that end or whether you will remain bound to the old state. What does it mean to live in the end? It means that inwardly, in the world of imagination, you accept as true that which the senses deny. You cease to live in the state of longing, of waiting, of hoping, and you take upon yourself the mood, the tone, the inner conviction that the thing desired is already yours. It means you carry yourself as one who already is, already has, already lives in the fulfillment. You may not yet see it with your outer eyes, but within you it is so real, so natural, that you begin to think from it rather than toward it. Most men live always toward their desires. They look at them as though from a distance and say, one day, perhaps, I will have it. One day, perhaps, I will be one. They live in perpetual anticipation, never in realization. But anticipation is not fulfillment, and hope is not possession. To hope is to confess lack. To live toward the end is to declare that you are not yet there. And so the end is always pushed further away, always a horizon never reached. But to live in the end is to close the gap, to declare within yourself, I am already what I desire to be. I already have what I long to possess. I already dwell in that state. When you assume this ends with feeling, everything in your outer world begins to shift. Circumstances rearrange themselves. People play roles they know not why they play, and events unfold in ways beyond your reason. For the world must mirror your assumption. The outer scene is compelled to reflect the inner state. And if the inner state is one of completion, of fulfillment, then sooner or later, the outer world must conform. Let me give you a simple example. Suppose you desire to be in a loving relationship. Most people, when they think of such a desire, live in the mood of waiting. They look around and say, I am alone. I hope someday to meet someone. Perhaps tomorrow, perhaps next month, perhaps next year. They long for the end but never enter it. Yet the one who lives in the end does not wait. They close their eyes tonight and imagine the scene of already being loved. They hear the words of affection spoken to them. They feel the warmth of companionship. They dwell in that state until it is so vivid, so natural, that when they open their eyes, the outer world seems like a stranger and the inner world feels like home. And in time, without effort, the outer world must deliver the reflection of that state. Living in the end requires courage, for it means ignoring appearances. It means looking at a bank account empty of funds and saying inwardly, I am already wealthy. It means facing rejection and saying, I am already loved. It means experiencing sickness and declaring, I am already whole. To reason, this is folly. To the senses, it is denial. But to my imagination, it is true. For imagination is always ahead of the world. It is the seed, and the world is only the harvest. When you live in the end, you no longer worry about how it will come. You cease to search for signs. You cease to question whether it is working. You no longer measure progress by outer events. You live in the conviction that the end is already established, and you rest in that knowing. To the degree that you can rest in the end, to that degree will your desire unfold swiftly and surely. Anxiety is the confession that you do not yet believe the end is yours. Impatience is the admission that you are not yet dwelling in fulfillment. But when you truly live in the end, peace surrounds you, for you know that the matter is settled, the outcome secured. Think of it this way. If you were given the script of a play and told the final scene, would you be troubled by what happens in the earlier acts? Suppose you knew that the play ends in triumph. Would you be disturbed when the character suffers defeat in the second act? Of course not. You would watch with calm assurance, knowing that the end is already written. So it is with life. When you live in the end, you know how the play concludes. You may pass through difficulties, you may meet challenges, but they do not shake you, for you have already claimed the final scene. This is the power of living in the end. It brings a stability of mind, a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken by appearances. You no longer live as a beggar, pleading for what you desire. You live as one who already possesses it, and in that possession, you draw the outer world into alignment. The beggar always remains a beggar, for he dwells in lack. But the one who lives in the end transforms the world by the sheer force of assumption. Do not confuse living in the end with merely thinking about the end. Thinking about it is not enough. You must feel it. You must inwardly taste the satisfaction of it. You must carry yourself as though it were already so. Thought alone is weak. Feeling gives it life. And when you clothe your assumption with feeling, when you let it sink into the depths of consciousness as something already accomplished, then nothing in the world can stop its manifestation. My friends, the true measure of your faith is not found in what you do, when everything around you agrees with your desire, but in what you do when the evidence of the senses declares the very opposite. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality, steadfastness to the imaginal act, unwavering conviction that what you have assumed is already true, even when all appearances scream against it. To possess this kind of faith is to walk by vision, not by sight, to be governed not by what the eyes behold, but by what the heart knows. The ordinary man says, I will believe it when I see it. But I say to you, you will see it when you believe it. Sight is not the cause of faith. Faith is the cause of sight. The world you see with your eyes is the echo of yesterday's faith, yesterday's assumption, yesterday's loyalty. If you remain loyal to appearances, you perpetuate them. If you shift your loyalty to imagination, you break the cycle and call forth something new. Faith is not passive. It is not mere hope or wishful thinking. Faith is active loyalty to the unseen. It is the inner commitment to remain in the end, even when the outer world mocks you. It is the decision to ignore the facts of life when they contradict your inner conviction. For what are facts but the hardened shadows of old beliefs? Faith dares to deny facts when they oppose your desire, not by resisting them in fear, but by calmly, boldly asserting the greater truth of imagination. Consider a man who desires wealth, but whose circumstances declare poverty. If he waits until the bank account is full before believing he is wealthy, he will never escape his condition. But if he, in the midst of lack, closes his eyes and inwardly assumes the feeling of abundance, if he walks as though wealth were already his, if he remains faithful to that inner state, despite every contradictory appearance, then in time the outer world must reflect his faith. For faith is creative. It is the seed from which all manifestations grow. The same is true for health. A man may be told by reason, by doctors, by the evidence of his senses, that he is weak, that his condition is hopeless. But if he can dare to live inwardly as whole, if he can feel vitality surging through his being, if he can remain loyal to the unseen reality of health, then that faith will in time clothe itself in flesh. Faith does not bow to statistics, nor does it tremble before appearances. Faith knows that imagination creates reality, and so it clings not to the evidence of sight, but to the assurance of the unseen. This is why Scripture tells us, Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Notice carefully, faith itself is the evidence. You do not need proof outside of you, for your inner conviction is proof enough. The moment you assume and feel the reality of your desire, you already possess its evidence. The outer confirmation will arrive in due season, but faith does not wait for it. Faith rests in knowing that it is done. To live by faith is not easy, for appearances will tempt you daily. They will whisper, "It is not working. Nothing has changed. You are deceiving yourself." They will parade before you the same old conditions, demanding your allegiance. And if you waver, if you fall back into doubt, you have abandoned faith. But if you can stand firm, if you can look at lack and say within yourself, "I am rich," if you can feel love when the world shows you rejection, if you can walk in health when your body protests with pain, then you have discovered the secret of creation. For faith does not yield to the senses, it commands them. Do not think that faith means straining or forcing yourself to believe. Faith is not tension. It is a quiet assurance. It is the calm rest that comes from knowing the outcome is already secure. When you truly assume the end, when you truly live in imagination as though it were finished, faith becomes effortless. You no longer wrestle with appearances, for they have lost their power to disturb you. You look beyond them. Just as a man who knows the script of a play is not disturbed by a tragic scene, for he knows the final act ends in triumph. Faith beyond evidence is faith that does not waver when the senses deny it. It is faith that sees the invisible, hears the inaudible, and feels the intangible. It is faith that clings to imagination as the only reality and allows the outer world to catch up in its own time. Such faith has moved mountains, healed bodies, restored relationships, lifted men and women from obscurity to greatness. Such faith is not reserved for the few, it is the inheritance of all. But few dare to exercise it, for few are willing to ignore appearances. The world calls such faith blindness. They say, "You must face facts, you must be realistic." But what is realism if not loyalty to the past? What are facts if not the crystallized forms of yesterday's imaginal acts? Faith knows that today's unseen assumption is tomorrow's fact. To cling to facts is to cling to shadows. To cling to imagination is to cling to the source itself. So I urge you, train yourself to walk by faith. When appearances tempt you, return within. Close your eyes and see only what you wish to see. Hear only what you wish to hear. Feel only what you wish to feel. And then refuse to betray that inner conviction by bowing to outer evidence. Be loyal to the unseen reality until it hardens into fact. The senses will fight you. Reasons will argue. But faith, when steadfast, always triumphs. So, my friends, we have journeyed together through the heart of creation. We have seen how the senses deceive, how they hold you captive if you grant them authority. We have uncovered the creative power of imagination, the true workshop of reality, where all things are conceived before they are born. We have discovered the art of living in the end, of dwelling in fulfillment rather than in longing, of assuming the state of the wish fulfilled until it becomes more natural than the evidence of the senses. And finally, we have seen the necessity of faith beyond evidence, the courage to remain loyal to the unseen when all appearances deny it. The message is simple, yet it demands courage. Ignore what you see, believe only what you imagine. Do not surrender your creative power to appearances. Do not wait for the world to change before you change within. Instead, dare to assume the reality of your desire. Dare to feel it now. Dare to persist in it until it is the only truth you know. For the world is but a shadow, and shadows must follow the light. And the light is your imagination, sustained by faith, clothed in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Carry this truth with you and use it. Test it in the laboratory of your own life. Do not merely listen, but apply. When appearances rise against you, close your eyes and return to the end. When doubt whispers in your ear, remember that imagination is the only reality, and faith is the evidence of things not yet seen. If you live by this, nothing will be impossible to you.